Hey, summer for Shadowhunters, Season 2, Episode 6, Iron Sisters. And I was definitely looking forward to this episode. You guys know I've been enjoying the season so far. Not necessarily last week's episode. I didn't love last week's episode. You guys know last week's episode was my least favorite episode of the season. Not just because of the fact that I thought some of the storylines were a little bit strange, but I thought it was just a little bit more campy than some of the other episodes. I still really did enjoy the episode. I thought it was very well done. But this episode, I definitely enjoyed a lot more. I thought we had a lot of interesting stuff going on here, and as you guys know, I really was not a fan of Izzy's storyline last week. Well, this episode got me on board with it, because most episodes actually focused on her. I like where they're going with her character overall. I thought we had some very interesting stuff going on. There was some long-awaited plot stuff that happened this episode I was very happy to see. And what I really loved about this episode, that really to show the show is not trying to take things slow at all. They're not rushing things, but they're doing things in an efficient way. They're doing it to a way that satisfies us, and I like the way they did that here. But let's just get into this episode, because I definitely do want to get into it. So we see in the beginning of the episode that Clare and Jace are doing a little research to figure out just what rune she used to save herself from the demon in the previous episode, and they turned up nothing. They have no information whatsoever. There's nothing, on record they could find or anything, how any of that could work. So Izzy shows up and pulls Clare away to ask how she is and to talk to her about her trip to ask the Iron Sisters about the Soul Sword. Now, we alluded to this last week that, Izzy was going to get to go on this trip with the Iron Sisters, and that there's this Soul Sword that is basically the new mortal instrument that Valentine wants to obtain. It's apparently now in his possession, actually, and she explains that she's been cleared for the mission and Clary wants to go with her, and she says that Luke is still missing and she doesn't want to sit around moping for her mom, so what better way to take her mind off things? This is the best way to really try to take her mind off that. But Izzy explains to her just who the Iron Sisters are, which are badass warriors, in her words, who create weapons imbued with energy from the angels for the Shadowhunters, and her admiration is apparent. She's clearly very excited about the trip. This is clearly something she's wanted to do for a long time. So before they leave, Izzy goes back to Aldertree for more Yin Fen, and let's talk about this cream, because as you guys know, the one thing I was not on board with at all last week is whatever the hell was going on with Izzy and this cream. Now, I've since found out that this Yin Fen is not at all something to, really, it's something to worry about. Definitely is going to play a major part of this season. But Yin Fen's actually not from the Shadowhunters series. It's from a spin-off series, apparently, and I guess they've added that into here, which I'm actually okay with. I like when shows actually change up things from the books, because if you've read the book or you've seen the movie, you already know pretty much everything that's going to happen. So this is a good way to change things up, and I do like the way the show is doing that. And I gotta say, they did do a good job of kind of getting me on board this week. I like where they're going with Izzy. Not so much the storyline, but I do like where they're going with her besides this. Because she tells him, even though she says she's using it wisely, her handshake, it's clear she's becoming addicted to it. I mean, when she's going back to him, Aldertree is essentially her supplier at this point. He's just giving her more and more Yin Fen, and she asks him about Clary going, and he agrees on the condition that Izzy reports what Clary says and does back to him. So I do like the way that he's still kind of manipulating her and still trying to, get any sort of information he can on her, because as we know, he really doesn't trust any of them. It's implied that he won't give her the Yin Fen or let her go. If she doesn't agree, so she does. So in many ways, he's kind of forcing her to give him this information, but I do like the way that Aldertree's doing that. Aldertree's purpose is to be someone who, he runs the Institute. He's doing things to the best of his ability. In his way, he's turning things around, and I did like seeing that. So Izzy and Clary then travel to the island where the Iron Sisters live, and almost immediately are set upon by them. And at first, they wanted the girls to leave immediately when they find out who Clary is, when they realize, who she is and what she's been through. But Clary makes her case that she too hates Valentine and explains that they need the sisters' help. So the sisters agree to let the Shadowhunters into the Citadel, but only after they've gone through a purification ritual to be sure they don't have any traces of demon in them, because obviously they're not going to work with someone who could possibly be evil. They're just not going to do that. But it's also revealed that one of the sisters is Cleophas is actually Luke's sister, which I thought was very interesting to see. I actually really did like the way that was done. I thought overall that definitely was quite interesting where they end up going with that. Now, we'll get back into that in a second, but now we need to talk about Simon, Simon in this episode, as I said, I don't love what's going on with him and his family life right now. I just think they rushed that very quickly. I get it. Obviously, he at the moment, he didn't really feel like he had any other minute to spare. He's now under the, he thinks that he could lose his mom at any point, and he's, worried that he's going to forget her, so I did think that was well done. But I do like where they're going with him here, because we see he's agreed to look for Luke while Clary's gone, but he's not up to a good start when one of Luke's pack members basically tells him they feel abandoned by Luke, and the pack is no longer looking for him, and he also heavily implies that Simon's no longer welcome to stay in the nearby boathouse since Luke is no longer around. This was all courtesy of Luke. You could do this if I was there, but obviously Luke's not there. So, since he went to Raphael earlier in the episode to seek help regarding his mother seeing him feeding on the rat in the previous episode, the other vampires had a memory of the situation, and really anything since they reunited wiped. So that was definitely interesting to see, we find out. So Simon's now left with nowhere to go, so to speak. He really doesn't know where to go now, and it's clear he is starting to lose her memories, actually. Her memory, she doesn't remember any of this, so I do like that that's cleared up immediately. I like that they don't know, that she doesn't know any of what's going on there. I thought it was definitely interesting to see, but I do like the way that Simon is kind of losing control of his life, and he definitely doesn't really know where to go at this point. So he's looking out his canoe bed, and Maia, the werewolf from Luke's pack, who had previously tried to kill Jace, approaches him, and these two kind of bond a little bit in this episode, and I actually really like seeing it. I like seeing these two, bonding and everything. She had overheard some of his talk with the other pack members and explained she hasn't stopped looking for Luke, even if the others in the pack have, and she explains that their transformations can be triggered by emotions, so he might have been worried that his grief would cause him to hurt someone, which is why he would disappear without a trace. And, obviously, Luke doesn't want to hurt anyone. It just shows really how selfless he is, and he hid away in, in fear that he would end up hurting someone that he was close to. So he knew that he couldn't control himself, and she agrees to go with Simon to an old campground that Luke used to take him to and Clary as kids, and they depart together. And during the drive there, Simon talks about both Clary and Jace, and Maia reveals how she has met Jace before. They commiserate over the fact that Shadowhunters just don't get what they go through as Downworlders, because, yeah, they really don't. I mean, while the Shadowhunters are, they're doing their thing, they're helping out the Institute, they're kind of going through their own struggles right now, that's nothing compared to the Downworlders, the people that have to live as, not people, because they're not really people, they are in fact immortals, the immortals that have to live as these creatures and have to deal with things in their own way and basically have to, have to be self-sufficient. That's something that the Shadowhunters just don't have. They have stuff access to them instantaneously. They have stuff they have people there for them every 24/7. As much as they don't want all of these men or all of these, corporate stuff around them, and they think that they could really do this on their own, they don't really know what it's like to be self-sufficient, and they generally bond with each other over how shared humiliating experiences they've each had in their relation to their Downworlder statuses, and I actually really did like this. I actually could possibly see these two dating, because we know that Simon does still love Clary. We've seen it pretty much throughout the whole show that he definitely wants more with her, but I think he knows that right now it's just not going to work out, and I think Maia is definitely someone that Simon could possibly pursue. Someone that, he could possibly use if he needs her. She can maybe give him relationship advice. I mean, I really like the direction they're going with Maia and Simon. I definitely really did enjoy that, and they bond a little bit more about their shared love of gaming after they get to the campgrounds, and before she's even a gamer, so she really has everything that Simon could want in a woman. She's just someone who actually cares about what he has to say. She's a Downworlder. She's not currently in a love triangle with anyone. She doesn't have like a million other things going on, which Clary, trust me, Clary has her own shit going on. She does not need a boyfriend right now. That's just too much for her to deal with. I mean, between the Iron Sisters and whatever's, finding Jocelyn, just Clary does not need a boyfriend. She has too much time on her hands, and, Maia is definitely someone that I think is more in Simon's wheelhouse, and I do like the way they really did show that here. So she then shares to him about her importance to Simon, actually. She knows of Luke's importance to Simon because there's a quick flashback showing that Luke was there for her when she changed and attacked someone. It's implied he's been on one of the few people to care for her since, because again, they haven't, really had anyone, and after sharing this with Simon, they both smell blood nearby in the woods. They soon find a deer who was clearly attacked by a wolf or werewolf, and we see that Luke, he's not killing people because he has to kill, he's killing harmless animals, and he's wandering in the woods, sad and in pain, and he's not happy about this, he doesn't feel satisfied. He feels very saddened, and he feels quite miserable, honestly. He's really quite upset about all of this because, again, he doesn't want to have to kill, and he's been since the previous Shadowhunters episodes. He comes upon a tent with cameras out, fire outside it, is able to control himself until they go into the tent, and this was genuinely a terrifying scene. I had no idea what was going to happen here. It's mainly because we don't know how on edge Luke really is. How far is he to actually cross that line and to kill? Is he actually going to do that? And they literally make you think that he's about to attack them. I mean, this was something out of a horror movie. They did an incredible job with this scene, and Simon and Maia then find him. Luckily, Simon does talk him down by reminding him of memories that the two share, and I really like this. I like the way that Simon was able to get through to him and tell him, look, you can't do this. You need to make sure that you stay calm and you don't, try to revolt even though he wants to. And after it seems that Luke has himself under control, he does talk with Maia and Simon about how his grief over Jocelyn has really affected him in many ways. I mean, you can definitely see that. And Simon tells him that they need him. They can't go on without him. They just can't do it all on their own. And Clary needs him, but he's still scared he won't be able to control himself and he's going to hurt someone. But Maia tells him that he needs to fight since those who care about him will fight with him, which is exactly what he told her when she first turned. And this seems to get through to him, and he agrees to go back with him. So it does seem that they've helped him out. We don't know why he's helped them out, if they've actually gotten through to him, or if he's really listening to them, or if he's just saying it for their benefit. We really don't know. I'm interested in seeing where they're going to go with this, but this was definitely closer to what Simon needs to be doing. I like this arc overall. I thought they did some very good stuff here. There's some very well-needed development in that field, and I really like the way that was done here. Now, the other big development going on in this episode, of course, has to do with that of Alec and Magnus. Ever since, not just Season 2, the end of Season 1, since these two have gotten together, we've alluded to them going on this date, and, that they're finally going to go on it, and that it's going to be this great thing, but they just haven't had the right timing. But finally, in this episode, we get to see that date transpire, and I really did love the way it was done here. I think it was very satisfying. It was probably the best time for Alec to go on that date, because we see over Magnus' neck of the woods, he's checking his inventory of magical items in the apartment when Alec appears. Apparently he had called the Shadowhunter claim an emergency, but it was just a ruse to get him to come over and to get his attention, because he very badly needs to talk to someone. I mean, even though he had that thing going on with Clary, Magnus is the person that he feels most comfortable talking to, and Alec goes to leave. He finds Magnus okay. The Warlock says he isn't okay because he knows that Alec isn't okay. He knows that Alec is not in the right state of mind right now. He is very deeply affected by him being the one to kill Jocelyn. Even though it wasn't his fault, he was in fact possessed at the time, he still does heavily regret it, and he still does feel very responsible for what happened, and he advised the young Shadowhunter to take some time for himself, and Alex surprisingly agrees that he is actually going to do this, and they go to a bar together, basically on their first dates, and Magnus proves himself a great pool hustler, while Alec proves himself to be not a great fan of alcohol, and they start talking about relationships, and I really did like this. I like the way that Magnus did this as a way to, distract Alec, basically, to get him to stop thinking about Jocelyn and have some fun, because obviously, Alec has been grieving a lot, and he wants to take him to, he wants to steer him away from that. It's revealed that Alec actually hasn't had any aside from Lydia, and that barely counted anyway, and I really did like this revelation, and it makes sense why Alec was very erratic and kind of reclusive in the first season, because as you guys know, Alec was a character I liked in the first season, but at times I thought he was kind of annoying, and they're doing a good job with showing why he was like that, because he was very much to himself. He didn't really have a connection with anyone, and he shares that he hasn't any relation because he knew he couldn't have what he wanted, not in the Institute anyway, until Magnus came along and was able to change things. And Magnus makes a comment at Alec being innocent, and Alex asks him just how many partners he's had, and at first Magnus says 17, but he's rounding down a lot more, we find out. And Alec eventually gets out of him that he means 17,000, which is crazy to think about, which isn't actually too crazy to think about because, you know, he's centuries old, as we know. You know, he's very old. He's been around for a long time, and it's not crazy to think about, really. I mean, I didn't think it was going to be, I didn't anticipate that much, but I knew it was going to be something big, because obviously Magnus has been along for a while, and at first they both agreed to be who they are and not care about their past, but when they get back to Magnus, it's clear that something is still bothering Alec. They're two different, he says, from two different worlds, different centuries even, but just when Alec's about to leave, he says he doesn't care how many people Magnus has been with, and Magnus replies he doesn't care how many people Alec has been with. They kiss, but are quickly interrupted by Jace, who has actually left the Institute and needs a place to stay. So I did overall like this arc. I thought it was very satisfying overall. I thought it did a good job with finally showing them on the state, finally getting to know each other. You can tell that they're really helping out each other, becoming the best versions of themselves, and I do like the direction that this is headed. But now we get into my least favorite part of this episode, which, again, is very unfortunate because it used to be my favorite part of the season, but now I don't know where they're going with this. Jace in this episode. I just don't know why he's here. I don't understand why he's in the Institute. Go back to Valentine. Valentine is going to come back for Jace at some point. Jace should just think, okay, you know, Valentine's gonna come back for me anyway, I should probably just leave. Even though Aldertree wants his way with him, Jace will find a way to get out of there. I mean, we've seen that before, but you know, he was able to override the system and save Alec. Alec would be dead if it wasn't for Jace right now. So, basically, after being questioned by Aldertree about why he and Clare were looking over the Great Book, which is about runes, Aldertree doesn't at all believe Jace's story, that he was merely educating Clare about the history of runes. He's far too suspicious of Valentine's son to believe he's totally innocent. You know, he again knows he has that demon blood in him. He doesn't feel that Jace is someone who he can actually trust. So he places the Shadowhunter on what he calls Iker duty, which, as it turns out, means clean all the swords after the other Shadowhunters use them, and it's basically like hard labor and kind of it's just like being a slave, basically. Like, that's what he wants him to be. He wants him to be just someone who cleans, and Jace is humiliated by his new task and goes to Aldertree about after how he hasn't performed it for very long at all. He asks why the other Shadowhunters are treating him so badly, and Aldertree plays back some of Jace's words from when he was questioned by the Silent Brothers, and this was a really dumb question on Jace's part, honestly, because, I mean, there's so many reasons to that. There's so many answers to that question. Like, why would you ask that question? Obviously, you know why. I mean, you're the son of Valentine. You had this reputation that you're this horrible person. You've been the reason why Jocelyn was back. You know, you were basically killed. Jocelyn was killed, basically, because people were looking for you. There was a rescue mission going on. I mean, there's just so many reasons why Jace is, you know, the target right now. There was no reason for him to say that, and he reminds him that he couldn't pledge full loyalty to the Clave, and Aldertree implies that if Jace sticks around, he'll let the others know that Jace couldn't give his full allegiance, and Jace figures out that Aldertree can't force him to leave, but rather can just make his life miserable enough so that he'll want to, essentially, that he'll want to leave. Like, he knows that Jace wants to stay in the Institute, and he's trying to make his life as bad as he can possibly be, so he will just leave out of, you know, just like a mercy killing, basically. So Jason, willing to be demoted and treated badly, choose to instead to leave, which is how he ends up at Magnus's, which I don't understand. I don't know if he's there to protect himself. I think the smarter thing to do would just be to go with Valentine, because he knows he'd come after him anyway. But whatever, I don't know where they're going with this. I'm really disappointed because I love what they've done with Jace thus far. Now it just seems like they don't know what to do with him. This seems like it was the second half of the season, but that they rushed this arc. They took 4 episodes, not even 4, 2.5 for Jace to be with Valentine. We had some very good development between them. Now I don't know what the hell they're going with this. I'm not really into this at all. It's the one thing that I'm not really into, and it really does suck because there was a point in the show where it was my favorite thing going on, and now it's just not that interesting, and I'm hoping that this does pick up because right now I'm just really not into this. But back with the Iron Sisters, Clary and Izzy agree to go through a purification ritual before entering the Citadel, which involves going into a pool of water that will reveal whether they have traces of demon in them. And at first, Izzy's reluctant to let Clary go in because she's convinced that Clary is going to come back positive, that she definitely will have the demon blood in her. And Clary realizes because Izzy fears that she may have demon blood like Jace. And Clary, determined to prove herself, goes in the pool, and she's purified without an incident. So that's fine with, she's fine. But when Izzy goes in, the water turns black and reacts negatively, and Clary has to pull her out, and the sisters won't let Izzy enter the Citadel, but she tells Clary to go ahead without her. And after the other Shadowhunters leave, one of the Iron Sisters reveals to Izzy that the Yin Fen contains vampire venom, hence the water's reaction. So this is definitely very interesting. I mean, as I've said, I haven't really been into Izzy's story, but now I'm liking where this is going. And inside the Citadel, Luke's sister Cleophas reveals the Soul Sword doesn't just compel someone to tell the truth, it also has a secondary power. It can be activated with angelic energy to be used to release a light that will destroy all demon blood creatures. Should a time come, the Shadowhunter feels it necessary if demons have taken over the world. That would include any and all Downworlders, which, that to me sounds like the end of the show. I don't know if that's how the books end, but to me, that seems like that's how the show's gonna end, with them just, with Valentine just being like, I'm done with you all, just takes out all the Shadowhunters. I could honestly see Valentine doing that, or Aldertree. Aldertree would actually probably be the one to do that. He'd just be like, out with you all, just clean slate, start all over again. And if that would happen, that'd be honestly hilarious if Aldertree did that. But if Valentine activates the power in the sword, Cleophas says it can't be turned off. There's no way for this to be reversed, and they have to stop him before he can do it. So as they're talking, Clary tells Cleophas about the strange incident with the rune vision that she had, and she shows her what it is and what it did, questioning if it's going to give her a vision of it from her mother as an angel. And Cleophas tells her their mother isn't an angel, not in the sense the Shadowhunters believe in and do the work of angels, and that no one really knows what happens to Shadowhunters after death, the same as mundanes, which again is very interesting. It's very rare that a Shadowhunter's actually died, so they don't know where she really went, what actually happened to her. I think it's interesting. So nearby, Izzy has used a rune to be able to hear this entire conversation, but later she goes to Aldertree with a report. She doesn't tell him everything in regards to Clary like he asked. She only tells him a few things that, he wanted to know, but not really the big details, which I think is interesting. And I don't know if Izzy's starting to get suspicious of Aldertree, but I definitely would be. I mean, after he essentially made her poison and basically made her evil, yeah, this is definitely someone you probably should not be associating yourself with. But after leaving the Citadel and the island, Clary goes to Jade Wolf, where she finds Simon and Maia chatting in a booth, but she doesn't approach them, probably because she just is very confused. She doesn't want to be a part of that. And Luke enters and they reunite with him, apologize for not being there with her following her mother's death. Simon watched from the booth, and Maia, who had clearly been having fun with Simon, sees the way he looks at Clary and seems very disappointed. I think Maia genuinely felt that her and Jace had a connection, her and Simon had a connection, but now she feels that Simon is, she's just kind of third wheel. Like, she's just kind of the second choice. She's not really there to be Simon's girlfriend, but rather to be Simon's relationship giver and relationship advisor, and that's not really something that Maia is interested in. So back at the Institute, Aldertree asks Izzy about Claire's behavior on the mission. She imparts that she definitely doesn't have demon blood. She gets angry at him because she could have died during the purification thanks to the yin fen he gave her, but when he asks her she doesn't want any more, she hesitates, and he's clearly getting her hooked in order to use her, and she should be smart enough to know that. However, she doesn't tell him about the rune that Clary explained, an important omission. She's not totally completely under his control, you can tell. So I am interested in seeing where that's going to go. Then we get to the ending. Now, this ending was very interesting. Outside the Citadel, another Iron Sisters is trying to keep Cleophas from leaving, but Cleophas kills her just afterwards. Something glows in her neck before she goes to leave again. We don't really know what that's all about, but that is the way this episode ends. Very interesting stuff overall. Let's just get into this episode and where I think we're going to go from here. So really a lot of new possibilities with this episode, I have to say. This very much did feel like we're kind of starting over to the beginning of the season, which is a good thing and a bad thing. If this season had 13 episodes, I'd be fine. but this season has 20 episodes, and that definitely does concern me that we're moving a bit too quickly. I really do feel like we kind of skipped the whole first half of the season and dived right into the second half. It just kind of feels the way to me, but there is enough interesting stuff going on that I definitely am interested in getting into. First of all, this whole idea of, the sword, the whole idea of the soul sword, I think is so interesting that basically the soul sword, it's not used to just kill one person, it's used to kill an entire race. Like, all of the Shadowhunters could just, basically just be eradicated, so just immediately. But just Shadowhunter genocide is a crazy thing to think about, but if that's really where the show is going, I mean, I don't know if they're going there, because it's only season 2, I doubt they're actually going to do that, because that would make no sense whatsoever if they did that, but I do think it's very interesting that that's what Valentine essentially wants. We've kind of been led to believe he wants his own Shadowhunter army, and I think that's true. I think he basically just wants to start all over again and, wants to make new Shadowhunters because he feels the ones that are around aren't effective and aren't really going to abide by his rules. I think that's something that definitely Valentine does want, and I think it definitely is interesting. But the Soul Sisters as well, I think, were very interesting characters. We can see the Cleophas, when she says that we kill, she means they kill. I mean, we saw at the end of the episode that she killed that one girl. I'm assuming because she thought that she was unpure, and she thought that she had demon blood in her, so I'm guessing that's why, but again, I don't really know. I think that definitely is interesting to see where they're going with that, and I'm interested in seeing how the Iron Sisters are really going to help them out, because clearly the Iron Sisters, they need their help, but how are they really going to contribute? I think that's very interesting. I really did like where we went with Luke here, that we found that, one, Cleophas is a sister, but two, that Luke really has had his hand in every pot, so to speak. Not in the way that obviously he's manipulating anyone, in the way that he really has cared for everyone. He's always kind of been this good person when it comes to advice, and sort of like father figure, and just sort of like the caretaker for the Shadowhunters. If you don't have a home, just come and live with me. I'll provide you a home, I'll give you somewhere to live, I'll give you a sense of space, and that's what he did for Maia. Maia's had this bond with Luke that I really did like seeing, and I like where they're going with Luke, but does he really mean it when he says, I'm fine now, I'm not going to kill anyone else? Does he really actually mean that? Or is he just saying that to, basically try to, avoid any sort of worry from Clary and Simon? Is he really doing that, or is he just trying to dissuade their worry? I don't really know. We'll have to see what's going to happen there, because at this point I don't really know. As far as Maia, I actually like where they're going with Maia here, because you can tell she genuinely does have feelings for Simon, but Simon, as we know, he likes Clary. I mean, we've known this since the beginning, that he definitely does have feelings for Clary, so him and Maia are really not going to work out. I feel bad for her, because it's clear she genuinely does like him, but we'll have to see who that's going to go, because I think that definitely is also very interesting. Let's talk about Izzy, though, because here's the thing. Last week, this was the thing I really was not into. I thought it was dumb. I thought it was campy. Now, I'm interested in seeing where this is going. Seeing Izzy is now affected by this demon blood that essentially Alder Tree gave her, I guess, to put her under his control, is very interesting. It does show this is a guy who's willing to go pretty far. He will do whatever he can to get his, to get the Shadowhunters to obey by his rules and to be under his command. Because, again, he feels he's doing the right thing. He feels he's putting the Institute in line. He feels he's the one to do it. He's essentially kind of trying to be the ruler of everything, and that's obviously not working. Jace didn't listen to him, but I think he's starting to catch on, and I do like seeing the way that Alder Tree actually is catching on. Again, he's trying to be that crutch that they really don't need. I've said it before, Alder Tree is definitely someone that they don't need, but obviously the Institute, because of things that went on in Season 1, they're not just going to get rid of him, so he basically will do whatever he wants. I am definitely worried about him and Izzy, though. I like where they're going with her not listening to him, and that, she's not telling him everything. But if they're going to go in a direction where they start some sort of tryst, I'm really not into that at all. I'm hoping they're not, but I'm very worried that he's going to try to use other methods, so to speak, such as sex, such as satisfaction, anything like that, to try to get her under his control, and I really hope that's not the case. Obviously, the Yin Fen already gives her some sort of weird sexual rush. I don't really know what that's all about, but she's clearly addicted to it. She's clearly, it's really starting to affect her, and it's not affecting her now, but as the season goes on, I think it's going to affect her more and more and more. And again, I think he's essentially trying to turn her into basically a stilted version of herself, where she just obeys his every command, you know, just listens to him, never tries to go against him, never rebels. And I think that's really what he's trying to do. He wants the Inns to stay in order, and I think he thinks that's the only way to do that, which obviously it's not. Jace, I have no idea where they're going with him at this point. I get that obviously Olatree wants to work him to death, essentially, so that he'll want to leave. Why he went to Magnus, I have no idea. I don't know why he decided to go to Magnus. That was probably the worst thing he could have done. Going to Valentine would have made a lot more sense. You know, he found a lot of information from Valentine. I think he knows Valentine's going to come back after him. But I did like the way that Valentine did feel like, you know, a villain in this episode. He didn't feel like a non-entity. He felt like he was there. Even though we haven't seen him since episode 3, he still is in the show. And I do like the way the show really did show that. Overall, guys, I definitely really did enjoy this episode. This was slightly better than last week's, but I am going to give this episode of Shadowhunters Season 2, Episode 6, Iron Sisters, the same grade I gave last week's, which is a 4 out of 5 or a B+. But over, guys, remember you Shadowhunters. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode overall. Left your thoughts on it. Would you like where they're heading with the storyline with Izzy? Where do you think that's really going? Do you like Aldertree? What's going to happen there? We only have about, I think, 4 or 5 episodes left to the mid-season finale, which actually, no, we have 4 episodes left to the mid-season finale, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, we only have about 4 episodes left, so I'm very interested in seeing where we're going to go with that. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be, I think, for tonight's episode of The Flash. Don't quote me on that. It could be for something else, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.